Hi everybody, welcome to episode 14 of the Teesside Business Podcast. We're lucky enough to be with Craig Hatch from Craig Hart Accountancy Consultancy. That was a mouthful for me to get out. Thanks very much for coming down with us and having a chat with us, bud.
Thank you for having me.
We'll jump in straight with everyone. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with accountancy and things like that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a chartered accountant. Went and did all my training in accounts practices. Worked in accounts practices for 7-8 years. 2 local ones in the northeast.
Yep.
Really good accountancy practices as well. Learned a lot throughout that. Obviously, you got to see lots of different customers or clients, different industries, different sectors. Got to really see the inner workings of businesses at that time and be able to see what actually makes a business successful and all of the decision making that actually business owners have to take. So it was a really good learning curve for me, and one of the reasons why I got into accountancy really was because I wanted to own my own business. So I left school, didn't really have an idea what I wanted to do, and just thought I want to own my own business. And so I went to sixth form, as I think a lot of people do, just fall out of school and just follow on the education path with no real direction, and took studies, business studies, law, economics, these type of things that you'd think really teach you about business, but actually you're learning from a book from perhaps someone who's never even been in business before,
which is so insane when you think about it. You know what I mean? Like
it is. So I lasted a good 2 weeks at sixth form and just decided that I actually want to be in the real world of business. So luckily for me, the Northeast Chamber of Commerce, as it was known at the time, only recently rebranded, they were offering accountancy apprenticeships. Oh, okay. My mother's a bookkeeper, so she pointed me down that path, why don't you look at this? So I did, and actually, loved it. We really got kind of, went on the apprenticeship, got like a placement and made a full-time job very, very quickly. At the time I had like 4 jobs, so I've always worked hard, and I mean, just not that I particularly had to, but I've just always had that kind of work ethic really. So started on my accountancy apprenticeship training, and obviously dropped off my jobs as that kind of grew. Got my chartered accountancy qualification, and then felt like I'd kind of conquered it to a certain extent. There was a career path there, but actually I wanted to learn a little more about the inner workings of a business. So I went and worked for an IT firm called Aspire Technology Solutions up in Gateshead. So went there as an accountant and became a kind of head of finance there. And that was a great platform for me. There were only 3 million turnover at the time. And I got to kind of start to build and lead a finance team and really, help to take that business forward. So
the growth of someone who's like, say, I was about to say medium-sized business then, but 3 million is still a lot of money in turnover. But obviously, it's that kind of mark where you're around that mark to the next level, where you start having in-house accountancy and finance teams rather than use So it'd be good, I imagine, to kind of see that jump.
It is, and when I arrived, the kind of had a few bits of advisors and accountants, but no one really would work full time in the business. So it was really a really good platform for me to be able to, take the skills that I'd learned and all the qualifications and then actually apply them in a business that was rapidly growing and needed some help. And so it was a great move, and I learned a hell of a lot with that business, and then kind of moved from there to try and learn a little more from basically, directors of finance and people who'd kind of been there and done it. So absorbing as much knowledge and kind of experience as I could from other people in the corporate world. So went to work for Ramsden's PLC, the pawnbrokers, as they were preparing for their listing on the stock exchange. And they've done very successfully since, which is great to see.
So is it called an IPO in this country?
It is.
Yeah. So did you come on board that's a public offering when it goes on the stock market? Sorry.
It is.
So did you come on board just before that?
It was about a year, maybe 18 months before they actually managed to get it away. I left before they actually got it away as well. There was a couple of other things.
It's not a very common thing in this country, is it? For
it's not.
Like a company public.
There's been quite a few in the northeast in the past couple of years. There's been a bit of a growth in that, but really, it isn't something that happens all the time. And I think a lot of business people see that as kind of a real business aspiration to have a business that's listed on the stock exchange, and and people can see the value of the business on a daily basis as the share price moves. But really, it should be seen for what it is, and that's to raise money and to actually a form of finance, really.
Well, I thought it would be a point where for want of a better term myself, like cash out when you get to a certain level. When you take it public, it's a good way. If you've got stock options in your company, then that's how you make quite a bit of money. When you go.
It is. You can get some really good valuations, and generally, IPOs are generally undervalued as well. So, you've got the institutional investors who are basically everybody's pension funds, who would kind of put up the money for the initial offering, and then after that point in time, they want to get a good price, that that really feeds into when it generally when a stock goes first on the market, you'd see a rise in the stock. But I mean, there's lots of reasons why businesses do it. It might be to raise finance, or it might be to let somebody sell out, and Ramsden's was for both of those reasons. So then I went to work for another Northeast PLC as well, Shield Therapeutics. Got to see, working within a listed business, all the insides, the reporting, and working down in London and whatnot, and really good experience there as well. But I got to a point where actually I was working on an evening and weekend, starting to build up a little bit of a client base of my own, and starting to build up my own little accounting practice. Starts off with just your friends and family asking for a little bit of advice, and it got to a point where I was like, well, actually, I'm going to set up my own limited company and start to look at getting set up, the practice assurance certificates and insurance and all that kind of stuff. So I did that December 15, and really kind of grew exponentially from there. So got to like May last year, and I realised, well, actually, I'm enjoying working for myself a lot more than I'm enjoying working for a business, and that's what I'm going to do. And so I kind of just took a plunge and was like, right, I'm going to really drive it forward. So at the time I had May 17, I had about 40 clients, which is a good head start if you're going to start your own business. And as at today, I've got 150. So
got that in that time.
In 13 months, real growth. So I've been very lucky that a lot of that's come from personal referrals. I've done little bits of kind of social media posts and stuff like that, and get really good responses and really good feedback from that. And so what I'm looking at now is recruiting and starting to build a team and build my accountancy practice up that way. So it's been a really interesting year, my first year for my own business. You learn a lot of things when you first do that, and I've really enjoyed it, and definitely the path for me was always to work for myself. And I think that a lot of people know that, and it takes a lot of time for people to realise and actually put their plan in motion. And leave full-time employment.
It's a big step, you know what I mean? One thing you mentioned there before is that some people who might be listening, that you said that you're a chartered accountant. Now, there is a difference between being an accountant and a chartered accountant, isn't there? If you could explain for people kind of what that means for people who are listening.
Yeah, sure. So it means I'm a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, which is a bit of a mouthful, but basically we have to sit exams, and so first of all, you've got to kind of go through that process. There's a big education piece, lots and lots of studying. I was kind of when I was doing my studying, I was quite young, so I started when I was 20 doing my ICAW, because I'd went through the apprenticeship route and got my AAT, which is another accountancy qualification, and then went on to do the chartered accountancy. So it means I'm a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. We're authorised and regulated by that body, and it means that we've got to kind of do work to a certain standard and adhere to all the tax rules in the UK and all the ethics and everything like that. So we get checks done by the institute, and we've got to have got to run your practice in a certain way. So the difference between a chartered accountant and an accountant who's kind of trained themselves but never really done a qualification is you get that assurance and that quality of work, really, and that reliance that you've
got someone who knows what they're talking about.
Exactly.
Rather than me who's just decided I'll start doing tax returns for people.
Yeah, it's a rubber stamp of approval, really. But actually, all the skills and experience that you gain throughout the exams are really difficult. You get people who go to university and study, do degrees and masters and whatnot, and then actually they really struggle with this set of exams. It's different.
Is there a lot more academics. Real world application involved in it? Because I imagine, is there a big difference to something that we talk about a lot of people, obviously, and you're in a great position that you went kind of start to go down the education route, but then moved into being trained as obviously a certified accountant and then going into business. Is there a big difference between fluffy training world accountancy and actually how it operates in the real world and things like that?
There is. I mean, the real world scenarios are obviously very different, and in the exams they've got they basically give you a business scenario and then they set out kind of basically give this business some advice. What would you recommend? Yeah. And they kind of give you some pointers about which what things that you need to ask. Yeah. And suggesting the answer. But in the real world, there's none of those pointers, none of those clues. So you've got to be able to ask the questions and get to know your client a little bit, know their business inside out, and then you can start to apply your knowledge and skills and experience on that particular business scenario. So talking about how the business is structured, directors, shareholders, the tax rules, and making sure that they're adhering to that, how they're managing the money, how they're managing their own kind of business plan, and if are they measuring themselves, and are they so there's it's a lot different in the real world. You don't have those pointers, you don't have the
kind of the real world application of those things. So one thing obviously I really wanted to talk to you about, because you're in a great place of kind of being in your first year of business but also being an accountant. Now everyone else thinks they start the first year of, oh my god, I need an accountant kind of thing. You've got the great thing as well, you knew all the things that you would need to set up and put in place when you very first started.
Absolutely.
If there's people out there who first will do, somebody who's just thinking about taking the plunge and going self-employed, what kind of things should they set in place from an accountancy and tax perspective, and then what are those people who kind of, when they've been in trade for a while, are there any differences kind of thing?
Sure. Now obviously every scenario is different, so I can't give specific advice about the situation, but generally the things you need to think about is if you're full-time employed and you're reliant on a salary, then thinking about actually reducing your overheads and how much money you need to make in your business to be able to afford to go take the plunge and do it. So have you built up some savings and a bit of a buffer, and then really having a roadmap of if I do generate this much income, this is how much I'll have at the end, and this is how much I need to save for tax and whatnot, and then this is how much actually I can draw from the business. So there is a little bit of a learning curve in terms of setting your business plan out right at the start. And a business plan doesn't necessarily need to be a 20-page glossy document that is that you can put to investors. But you should I think you should pen on paper your thoughts and your targets and what it is you're trying to achieve. Now, in terms of the structure, when a lot of people first set up, they just automatically think, well, I need a limited company. Because that's what everybody kind of does. But there's a lot of businesses that don't need that, and it would just complicate things, and increases your accountancy fees, your compliance fees, and it's not required. It might just be setting up a small retail business. You can just operate that as a self-employed person or a partnership. And these are a lot simpler structures that can be set up directly with HMRC. I would always recommend for anybody looking to set up a business to speak to an accountant first, whether that be me or anybody else. And I think that that is really valuable. And people are often a little bit frightened, but we're here to help. And often the first meeting's free. An accountant really kind of expects to spend a little bit of time getting to know a client and getting to help them with things like business plans and forecasts and things like that before people can set the business off the ground. So it's not like the clock starts ticking the minute you pick the phone up to an accountant. It's got to be a mutual relationship where the accountant will do all the compliance stuff later on, but there's actually so much more that they can help you with.
And I think that's a change within the industry over the last 10 years or so, that a lot of people did have that kind of thing, that the accountant is something that you only speak to once a year kind of thing, when the dreaded tax return rolls around, etc. And it is, as soon as you pick the phone up, it's like solicitor, you start getting a bill, etc. But it has changed a lot. Like when people actually look at what accountants do, it's not just like tax return. There's such a wide variety of things, and it does become, like you said, like really close to business planning and things like that and coaching, especially when it comes to, finance and things like that and generating capital, etc.
It's enormous, and I think the shift is only increasing. I think that people are going to find that they can use programs and apps to actually deliver on all the compliance stuff, and that just gets done by itself. And actually, the accountant's there to try and implement those things. But and a lot of the clients that I have acquired over the past year have come from other accountants firms where I'll always sit down with that for a new client for at least an hour and just say this is what your income is. If you've been trading already, this is what your income is. This is what your costs are. Maybe we should look at trying to reduce these costs. Yeah. This is what your net profit is, that's what you're taxed on, and then if you're a limited company and talking about the dividend tax rules and pension contributions and
which is a new thing that you've just heavily rolled out.
It is, and particularly with auto enrollment, every employer has to offer a pension to their staff now, and it's a huge regulatory burden. You've got to do some reporting, or if you don't have staff, you've got to tell the pensions regulator that you don't have any staff that qualify, and so. Yeah, I mean, the industry is completely changing, and I think that's going to continue with. There's some changes coming up, which like making tax digital. Mm-hmm. So what HMRC have done is said, well, every VAT registered business has to now submit using some HMRC accredited software. So this is from March next year. They're looking at. So from March next year, you've got to use a particular software. Well, there's one of about 20 or 30 software packages that are accredited at the minute. Yeah. But that's going to really affect some, smaller retailers who
a lot of self-employed people
got a till, and they're just old school till rolls and stuff like that. They're going to have to look at how they record their sales. Should really be straight into this app or one of the apps, and then that has to be translated with perhaps some adjustments to the VAT return to HMRC, and that's going to be a huge change, and I think it's going to sneak up on quite a few smaller businesses. Like there's a lot of, in Teesside, there's still like a lot of cash businesses.
There's still that old thing, how much for cash, that you sometimes get asked. Is that going to affect like a lot of cash businesses, obviously, because it's something that's becoming less and less, and cash is becoming not a dirty word, but obviously
Well, I think in general, the UK economy is moving away from cash. So there's whilst there is still a lot of cash businesses around, people have made more card payments now than they make cash.
I personally do. The deli next door goes mad with me. I was just in there now, and I never ever have cash on me. And obviously they get charged a percentage from me using my card, but I never ever have cash.
Yeah, and it's too easy, with the contactless and whatnot. Now, going back to something you said, it's going to affect people who are VAT registered, which means the turnover is more than 85,000 a year. So I mean, a business would generally know if they're VAT registered. They would know, and so you'd hope so.
Are we?
And so they're going to have that. Those are the people that are going to have to do something about it. And it's not a long time to plan. You're 9 months away now, so you should be starting to think about what systems you're going to use. So I'm helping a couple of my clients with that. So. So it's all about helping people with business changes. So you've got Brexit coming up, which is huge business change, and that's going to massively affect imports and exports, and
which there is a lot on. I don't think people realise how much of that there actually is in Teesside, and a lot of people say there's not much industry in Teesside, but there is more and more industry happening. What did I say? Was it A.V. Dawson that had just expanded another £2 million, and it's going to generate 20 jobs, etc. But
obviously they're in a great location over in that in the dockyards over Teesport. So, and there's a lot of investment going into that area. It's great to see. Ben Hutchin is the Tees Valley Mayor. He's obviously pushing a lot of that area and trying to rehabilitate the SSI site that's over there, that's currently owned by some Thai banks, and it's like they're trying to release the site so we can actually get some economy and some use
the whole
out
thing
of
with
it.
the ski lodge and the land around that and things like the boho areas and stuff like that. There's going to be a huge injection around that area, I think, over the next 5 or 10 years.
There is, and it's interesting to know that's a lot of the cash that comes from that is from the EU as well. So it's be interesting to see how where, if that cash is going to continue and for grant for projects. And so it's going to have. I think Brexit will have a huge impact. It'll change the exchange rates all over again with the foreign exchange, but also it's going to have a huge impact on the imports exports. People that are currently working here. There's so much to think about and actually for the government to deliver on that. they've obviously put a transition period in, which is, kind of kicked the can down the road somewhat. So we're now looking at like December 2020 for an actual exit date. So we have to have all the sorted by then. But it's going to be a huge impact because it affects, legal agreements and, all of the like product standards and stuff like that. If someone manufactures a product, it's got to be manufactured to like EU standards at the moment, and all that's going to change. Are we going to just adopt what we've currently got, or are we going to?
It's the Wild West. You can just do what you like.
Yeah.
Well, unless somebody puts it in, and it'd be. I think it's really surprising that some of this stuff somebody won't think about, and it'll just slip under the radar, and then all of a sudden,
it's frightening. Things like it doesn't. Well, it does affect the Teesside area because there's plenty of fishing industry, but at the minute the fishermen can only go out so far from the shore, and actually, what's going to happen upon Brexit Day? Are we going to get our own shores back, or are the EU going to claim some? And what's the agreement's going to be around?
Or there's like minimum wage and all that kind of stuff, or that's set and all that kind of stuff, and it's crazy. One of the things actually talking about like regulation and things like that I wanted to talk to you about is the dreaded GDPR. For I can't remember what GDPR stands for.
General Data Protection Regulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just know that we all hate it. So we had somebody on, it must be about 5 podcasts ago now, who was talked about it. But I didn't realise how much GDPR would actually change it. A lot of businesses have been affected by it. Businesses like Groupon, etc., are really going to notice the squeeze out of it. But I noticed that there was a lot in, obviously, how data is shared between us and our accountant, for example. We had to like sign into a portal and have my own password rather than when they could just email stuff over to me and things like that.
Yeah.
Is there a big notice that you've noticed in like your industry and things like that? Or?
It is. I mean, I kind of I try and push technology as much as I can because it makes the business more efficient. But yes, you need to then think about the way you're sending and sharing information. So, if, for instance, like you said, you've got to have an online portal so that the documents are stored because, with an email, if you're sending someone's tax return out, there's a kind of digital footprint when it leaves your inbox. When it arrives in theirs, they have to kind of sign and digitally send it back and whatnot. So then there's another digital footprint coming back. And emails can be picked up, and they're not necessarily secure, even if you're paying for your emails. So using an online portal, secure, but it makes it a little bit more difficult for clients because then they've got to like sign up and set a password and all these things.
Which only takes a couple of minutes, but
it does.
It's more like, I imagine for you guys, it's more like obviously it only takes us as your accountancy customers to fill it in a couple of minutes. But actually getting those people, especially if they don't like tech, there's a lot of people still in, Teesside's getting a lot better for tech, but there is still loads of businesses who are against tech and don't adopt it, etc. I imagine it must be like a challenge to get a lot of people to sign up for it and go, look, this is the day you need to do it right now.
It is. Well, if you don't sign up for this, then we can't get your tax work completed and whatnot. So you've got to kind of help and educate the client as well. Now, there's other impacts of GDPR though that kind of were unforeseen in some ways. If I'm sharing information with perhaps a mortgage advisor or some other type of advisor or solicitor, we've got to confirm that they're GDPR compliant as well, because you're the data controller. You're sharing data with the data processor, and you've got to make sure that they're GDPR compliant. If not, you've got to look at whether you can actually share data with them. So it has had far-reaching impact, and I think the impact on a lot of small businesses, they've had to spend a lot of time doing all this, regulation, make sure they're compliant, when actually they could be focusing on the business and generating more turnover. It's, whilst I think it is EU-led legislation as well. It'd be interesting to see if there's changes to that. Further down the line.
When we go, like, if they abolish it, God knows, because it's man hours at the end of the day that like we work with like some financial firms, etc., and that was a big thing for them, GDPR. You know what I mean? Like making sure that everybody was protected and etc. etc. So if it turns around and they just get rid of it, I can't be fuming.
It would be all that hard work would be going to waste. But I think they just adopt some of the rules and try and get rid of some of the more time-consuming ones to try and comply with, but you'd hope that kind of a bit of common sense would come through as well. So I mean, it is great. It does protect people's privacy and it protects people's data being kind of used against them, and you know, mainly it was targeting marketing purposes. But I think
obviously email marketing and stuff like that is now a thing of the past.
Yeah, greatly impacted. And you see, you know, you try and go on any website, you know, and you can't see the website for a privacy notice that you've got to try and click and get out of the way. So, or you know, read and comply with. So yeah, it's kind of one of the things. But I guess one of the other areas I wanted to really talk about was some of the decision makings when, you know, as you mentioned, when people are first setting up in business. So you've mentioned a couple of times on the podcast about Tees Valley Business Compass and their role. So
where we work closely with them. They've got, you know, obviously for those who don't know, they provide funding for people, etc. For whether it be for growth or marketing or various different roles, like, you know.
Yeah, and I think that there's, you know, certainly there's been a couple of instances where I've had clients come to me, or new clients, and they've said, oh, well, I've done this project, can you get me any funding for it? And it's like, no, it's already done. You come to me before you start the project, and then we can sort of try and, you know, raise some funding for that. But the structure's quite interesting, really, because if, you know, we do have a little digital tech hub here in the Tees Valley, and you know, depending on the structure, you know, if you're thinking about like university spin-outs and whatnot, generally you'll have someone with a great idea, and you might have like an investor coming in and trying to fund that idea. If it's set up correctly, you can get some really quite attractive like tax relief. So there's EIS relief and SEIS relief, where you can get up to 50% of any money you invest back.
Which is crazy, because it was something we were talking about earlier, that if you go to even Newcastle and Leeds and stuff like that, when even in tech or any big startups, like getting an investor in is a very common strategy now. But for some reason in the Tees Valley area, it's not something we really do. Like angel investing, for example, it's like, you know, when you go like anywhere else, like there's so many of them, but we've only got a couple in Teesside, and 99% of business had no idea what an angel investor is when they went to set up. So we've got one coming on, thankfully, that I'm really looking forward to speaking about. But that kind of stuff, is it something that we should be adapting more in Teesside and things like that, do you think? Or is it good, or is it now become a bit of a bubble that might be bursting in some industries? Or?
I think it depends on different circumstances. So for instance, in Teesside, I think we're really good at adapting and making good. So, you know, very thrifty in terms of our working ethic. So you know, you're not like in London going to raise £1 million for your app idea that's going to go to America and you know, smash £1 billion of sales. In Teesside, we're much better at, you know, right, well, I want to start a business. How do I get it off the ground without spending any money? You know, without
bootstrapping everything.
I buy second-hand equipment, or I buy, you know, or you know, no equipment at all. You borrow it from someone, or, you know, business ideas don't necessarily have to have £1 million investment. So, but some businesses do need that injection of capital to get it off the ground.
Or
angel investment,
or taking that next step necessarily. You know, like you know, expansion of any description. You know, I want to talk about a bit R&D and stuff. But sorry, carry on. I interrupted you.
Yeah, well, that's another thing that you know, that I was going to mention is, if you couple some of these things together, so you've got, you know, your Tees Valley Business Compass can start to look at funding some projects. You've got SEIS or EIS relief, where you can get up to 50% tax relief. You've got R&D, where you can get R&D tax credits, and you know, if you're researching a product and you know, you're doing something different that someone's never done before. Or you just, you know, you're adapting an existing idea but making it more efficient. You know, some of these things do actually attract quite attractive tax reliefs, and you can use a lot of these to help to fund your business and to help it to grow. And I think that we probably, in the Tees Valley, while I said we make do, and we you know, we work hard without raising any outside investment, you probably just, you know, some people probably don't even know about these things. So
I imagine most don't when we start talking to them.
So it's good to, I mean, that's one of the things I really want to raise awareness of is these tax reliefs, and you know, speaking to accountants and advisors who, you know, who have got experience in these areas. There's patent box as well. I mean, that's quite a specific one for like manufacturing or software development, but it means that if you develop a patent for something, and it means that you pay a reduced rate of corporation tax on any profits relating to that patent. So you're paying tax at 10% rather than corporation tax at 19%. So really attractive tax reliefs if you know about them, and if you make the right investment. So you know, getting patent protection doesn't have to be super expensive. There are some fees involved, but But yeah, so
when it comes to patents and stuff like that, what kind of company should be looking at that kind of thing? Is it literally anybody who manufactures anything, or is it an original idea that the manufacturer that they need to look at? Or
I think it's anything that you want to protect. So if you've done a project and you don't want anybody to steal that idea, you have a widget and you don't want somebody to come along and just produce the same widget in their own factory and really steal
outsource it to China and half the price.
Intellectual rights. Then you want to be looking at patent protection and how you can protect your idea. But there's a difficult battle between seeking that advice and spending the money and actually focusing on getting your business off the ground in the first place, because a lot of the time. You want to be going out, you want to be telling people about your fantastic product, and you want to raise awareness and generate some sales. But if that falls in the wrong hands, then you're going to end up with
you could come undone down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a difficult battle between when's the right time to do that. So,
one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about is dreaded HMRC. Obviously, for most businesses, it's this entity that we all have to comply with and give our money to. Are the changes happening with HMRC? Are they for businesses, do you think? Are they against businesses? Is it a bit of a grey area? Like, can they work with businesses? Is it like, it's notoriously hard to work with, etc., which is why we all have accountants.
Yeah.
Do you think there's been much change in it recently, or it is changing? I just wanted your general opinion on it without putting your neck on a block, really.
Yeah, no, I think that I think HMRC realised that they've got to do more to try and stamp out tax evasion and make sure that the right amount of taxes are paid in the UK. So they're realising that technology can help them with that. So there's much more of a focus on that. In terms of changing the rules and how you make submissions. So the Making Tax Digital one should help to stamp out some UK tax evasion. And I think that they're going to increase to do that. So the Making Tax Digital is going to roll out with VAT, for your VAT submissions first. Once that's done, they're looking at rolling out, doing that for personal tax returns. So at the moment, you would do a personal tax return once every year. And they're looking to make that quarterly reporting. So you'd report, like you're doing your VAT returns, so your income, your expenses, and you'd have to basically do, you don't have to do a full set of accounts by any stretch. And I think they're trying to make it simplified so that business owners could do it themselves. And then, an accountant comes in at the end of the year and then just fills in and does all the year-end adjustments and stuff. But that, I think, has an impact on the accountancy firm as a profession. It means that we're possibly going to be needed 4 times a year rather than once. They've changed and delayed those dates quite a few times in the past, but I think that HMRC realised that they're they're there to collect the taxes, and they are they really are doing that. And I think whilst they can be dreaded, if you kind of the subject of a HMRC investigation, just make sure you've got the right advice and make sure you've got the right evidence and to back up all your tax returns and whatnot.
Well, this is a big part of, like you say, going digital and having these tools in place. It does make such things a lot easier, because if all your sales are going through digitally and everything else is going out digitally, then it makes it a lot easier, rather than HMRC rolling up on a business and say, we're investigating you, we estimate you owe this, prove it. Well, I'm a cash business, I can't. Come unstuck really quickly.
Yeah, and I think that in my experience with some investigations for some of my clients who were existing clients and some of my clients who weren't clients but they've come to me to help them with their investigations, they're actually they have been very very sensible, very very fair, and they're not there to. There's obviously plenty of stories out there about I guess business people who've been unfairly treated by HMRC, but they're there to enforce the rules, and as long as you follow the rules and do what you're supposed to do, then they are very fair. And if you're sure that you've done that in all instances, then the investigation is closed very quickly. And even areas that are potential kind of sticking points in terms of how you view the rules and how HMRC view the rules, and they've been very fair in my experience, and they've been.
Well, ultimately, they do want everybody, obviously with the exceptions, but to as many people to be in business as possible. Because if they put people out of business, well, obviously, if you're breaking a lot of the rules, then you are going to go out of business. But if they do want to help people, because you're not going to be paying any tax if you go out of business, so there is I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, there's a balance. They are very good at enforcing their own penalties as well. So it's better to get your tax right the first time and to make sure that you're paying everything you should, because otherwise you can end up with penalties that result in 100% of the tax you should have owed. So you can end up in a sticky situation still if you don't do everything right. But just make sure, my advice to startups and business and even established businesses, make sure you got the right accountancy advice, because if you don't, there's some really complex rules out there, and it's HMRC do expect business owners to know the rules in their particular sector.
Which is hard, like I imagine, like obviously you've got to keep up with the changes regularly with HMRC, because like you say, you get tested on, etc., with compliance. But a lot of most business owners are very head down running their own business. Like if they don't get notified of these changes, then they're probably not going to go looking for them, if that makes sense. Which is challenging in of itself, but
it is, and I think that a business owner's got enough on the plate to try and make the business succeed. They need the right advice to be able to apply the rules and make sure that they're not overpaying tax, but in the same breath not underpaying it either. You've got to rely on your accountants to do that, and it's
completely.
It's interesting, but I have, in the past few years, I've seen a big move of, there's a lot of new businesses established, a lot of my new clients are first time self-employed or first time operating a limited company. There's been a huge move in that, and I think has a big effect on a lot of different industries. So, if it's a new business startup, they might need, marketing, and so I think that eventually the economy is expanding, and I think it is a good move that people are now moving towards self-employment, and it gives a lot more freedom of work and everything. And I think that it's a much, I know that I've made the right decision in my first year of business. So it undoubtedly can be great for people, as long as people realise actually what owning a business entails. Like there is like a lot of romantic pictures put out there online at the moment of sitting on the beach with a laptop kind of thing, and it's kind of like everyone laughs at it, because when you own your business, it is so far removed from actually, like I've never ever met a successful business owner that absolutely didn't work ridiculously hard on their business. Obviously there is a lot of like work-life balance and stuff like that comes in. Do you have a family yourself? Sorry, I forgot. No, I don't have any children. No. But I mean, one thing you just said there about having a laptop on the beach and it's like a meme online. There's two sides to that, and I think that you've got that looks great and it's a great picture. I'm working on the beach, fantastic. But actually, you're probably on holiday. And you worked very hard for that, and you're still working on your holiday. So whilst you might have a nice view, you're still not having a break and you're not enjoying. So for me, in terms of work-life balance, I do work very hard during the week. My phone never stops Monday to Friday. There's always something, new clients or existing clients with queries or issues that need resolving. So my phone's non-stop from kind of 7 a.m. till 9 at night, and I've got to try and fit work in between. So, but it's been, but actually, I've always had that work ethic. So it's not really. It's not a chore to me to work like that. Yeah,
which most people who run their own businesses view it like that, because they want it to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if you really want a successful business, you really got to put the working hard when you first set it up. And you can start to kind of reap the rewards later. So when you start to employ some staff, you should try and relinquish some responsibility and try and structure your firm so you're not the sole
bottleneck for absolutely everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I mean, I work a hell of a lot of hours, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy the challenges. I enjoy helping my clients. I mean, one of the big strengths that I think that I've been able to take advantage of is being able to explain, complex tax things, but down to earth and bringing it down to simple, plain language, so my clients understand it.
Which is a massive thing, like in your industry. You know what I mean? Like it is can be incredibly complex, and if someone is trying to explain it to you in another complex way, or even just the language that's used with HMRC can be very confusing, especially when people are first starting out, etc. So it is great that it's changing that way that people can break it down and look at it and stuff like that. Yeah,
I think it's been a real strength, and that's why I've kind of been able to grow my firm so quickly and get so many referrals in, is because I get a lot of people who've been with other accountants before, and you know, they say, well, I've never had that conversation with my accountant before, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's the first time they've looked at all these other things, and structuring their limited company very simply, and basically simplifying everything.
So what kind of services do you currently offer for your clients? Because obviously there's the standard tax return for self-employed people at the end of the year, but obviously accountants offer like a wide variety of services now. So what kind of stuff do you currently offer to your clients?
So down to the small, new startups, you've got the self-employment. So registering people for self-employment, helping them to, set up a business plan at the first instance, or it might not even need a business plan, just some basic advice in terms of what you need to look at. So setting up self-employment, setting up limited company, all the tax requirements for that, payroll systems and running people's payroll for them, VAT returns. Those are the kind of key compliance areas of an accountant's firm. Offer all those services, but then it's all the added value stuff, really, helping people to grow their business. Providing the business connections and making sure that people have got the right advisors within their business, so solicitors, or it might be a mortgage advisor, or it might be a marketing company, or whatever it might be, and being able to be able to network and provide those connections is a real strength as well, I think. Those are that's pretty standard for an accountancy firm, but I think the way that they're delivered through our firm is quite different and refreshing, really. And I think it has to be able to succeed in the future, this digital age and stuff like that. And I think, we're going to be working a lot more digitally. My plan for the future really is to start to employ some staff, but also set up like a 24/7 accountancy help desk. So because I know a lot of people who work offshore, and a lot of people work 12-hour days, and HMRC isn't open in those hours, the accountants aren't open in those hours. So it's really difficult for them to actually get the advice that they need. So I think actually a 24-hour help desk
would be a massive, especially for the offshore people and stuff. So that is a massive industry still in Teesside. I know it is on a slight decline, but still a huge number of people still work offshore.
It is, and even though the North Sea's in some ways declining, people still work in that industry, but in other areas of the world, and they'll go further afield to get contracts. So I think there's that's the plan, really, to have an accountant's firm who can have all the digital platform behind it, so clients can see all the files and see all the projections and see all the tax documents from going back previously, and it's all held securely in the cloud, and then they're able to access them any time. There's a 24-hour help desk who can provide tax advice and be able to because it's often when you get in from work, you'll open your post and you might have something unexpected, and it's like, I want to know exactly what that is immediately. And
sometimes it's not the clearest thing what it is,
Exactly.
It's a fantastic idea, really, and something that's probably lacking really in the industry, especially around here. Right, so there's 3 questions that we ask everybody when they come on the podcast, which, if this is the first time anyone watching, they are the first one: what is your idea of success? Because everybody's different, some people it can be £1 million in the bank, some people it can be just working on a beach with a laptop, some could be just spending time with the family, no matter what it is. The second is a failure that you've had that has set you up for future success. A lot of entrepreneurs and business owners really look at some failures that they've had and really notice that either it was a change to their mindset and how they thought about stuff, or it actually put them on a path to current success. And one thing that you're obsessed about at the moment, which can be anything from gadget, video game, TV show, or something in your business, whatever it is. So we'll start with the first one. What does success look like to you?
I think that something that I certainly work towards is having being able to work on something midweek, in the working week, that provides financial freedom. And also being able to achieve non-financial goals as well. So in business, for me, when I first set up, I had some financial goals, but also some non-financial goals, and trying to and achieving those, and is really something that I find gives me a great feeling of success, and that's kind of I think continuing to do that, to build the firm and the vision that I've got, is what I would call success, being able to achieve that. So
fantastic.
So yeah.
And then on the other end of that, what kind have you had any failures that have led you to success in the future?
Yeah, I think really trying to do too much. So when I was working full time, if you take it back to like day one in my accounting career, having 4 jobs, you can't give something all of your energy if you spread that thinly across, focused on so many different things.
In reality, each 4 things getting 25% of.
Absolutely, and that happened, throughout my working life. I think working full time, being focused either on that or working on my own business, and I think you've really got to, at some point, flip that switch and just focus solely on your own business. And that possibly took a bit too long for me. I thought, I possibly should have started my own business and established it and really pushed it forward before that, because I would have been a little bit further ahead of where I am now. So I guess that was a bit of a failure, is not having the self-realisation of doing that. And so yeah,
that's pointed for like a bit of a better vision now you've gone self-employed and realising.
It has, because I know. I mean, I've matured and got a little bit more experience, and it means that I've got a bit more clarity over what it is that I want from my business and how I want it to grow in the future. So I think that has pushed me to a little bit more success. I'm hoping for a bit of success tomorrow as well. I'm up for Accountant of the Year at the North East Accountancy Awards.
Oh, fantastic!
So that's tomorrow evening, obviously, while England are playing as well. So
you just have it on the phone streaming under the table.
I think everybody will. I think no one will be paying any attention.
No.
But no, I think so. I'm hoping for a little bit of success there as a result of all of the work I've done in the past year.
Yeah. Well, when you win, you'll have to let us know on the podcast so we can share it for you.
Well, the field's pretty good, and there's 7 people up for the award as well. So it's it's going to be pretty tight. So
we'll have our fingers crossed.
Thank you.
And the last one, what one thing are you obsessed about currently at the moment?
So I was thinking about this, and I think generally like online media, so podcasts and video logs and stuff like that. So things like that. I mean, possibly the most successful one at the minute is the Joe Rogan podcast. And he's got so many different guests on. It's so successful because he's got so many different topics. And he's able to just sit there and chat through it for 3 hours. And it's amazing how much actually you still tune in. 3 hours in. And but on the other side of that, things like you can research anything on YouTube. So
well, it's now currently the biggest search engine in the world.
Is it?
Past Google, because if everybody does it, how to change a light bulb, how to whatever it is, because then there's a visual thing of explaining it as well. But search now, there's more searches on YouTube than Google. Well, it technically is Google, but But so I injured my knees 5-6 weeks ago. I torn all sorts of stuff in it, and I've been learning from YouTube how to rehab and how to exercise and really get it better. So it has a really good impact on your physical health as well as mental. But then if you travel anywhere, you're looking at video logs and stuff like that. So it's really the media that you can get on online devices and on your mobile phone and everything. It's amazing what you can see and experience. If you can really put your mind to it, you can kind of feel like you're there. So it's only going to get deeper with things like the voice side of it. Obviously, like Alexa and stuff, you can play podcasts through and stuff like that now, which is a massive thing. Obviously, Instagram's just launched its own TV, so people can have TV channels, which is, even though it's a rival to YouTube. You can have an hour episodes on there, which we've started to upload things on there. Even just how we come, like VR and stuff like that, and heads-up displays are all just around the corner. So
there's huge, technological advancements. There's a guy I watch called Gary Vaynerchuk.
I
presume you know who he is.
He has a great agency. That's one of his branches are in London.
He's really quite a fantastic guy for motivation and speeches and success and stuff like that. And I kind of just stumbled across him on YouTube. But checking in with him every day makes you kind of reassess what it is that you're trying to achieve and push harder for your own success as well. I find motivation in some of those videos as well.
So some of them are great. He's got some great information out there, especially what I really we start to look obviously some of the stuff he talks about, we do a lot of the same stuff, so it's great to kind of see that somebody on that scale, because like VaynerMedia is in like 3 countries, like 800 employees. Like it's a huge agency that he has. So to see that sometimes that, you know, how things are going, you know, it's a great thing to actually tune and watch. I've watched quite a lot of his stuff myself, so if anybody hasn't, I really recommend checking out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, you know, one of the things I spend my time doing whilst I'm working away. You know, there's always his influence. I always have like
background noise on and stuff.
That's how I find I focus better.
So if anybody's got either they need an accountant or they just have questions about how to get setting up and they're thinking about opening a business, no matter what it is, where are the best places for them to get hold of you?
I'm available on LinkedIn. If you just search for me, Craig Hart. If you Twitter, Facebook, you know, all of those platforms, you can Google me. I haven't set up the website yet, but that'll be coming in the next 6 months. Once I first take some stuff on. So those are the platforms where you can find
we'll have
me
all
and
those
get in
linked below
touch.
and everybody, so they can click straight through for it.
Great.
Well, thanks very much for coming on. It's been great to chat to you.
Thank you very much.
This has been episode 14 of the Teesside Business Podcast. The Teesside Business Podcast is produced and promoted by Person to Person Marketing. Thank you very much.